Hi, I'm Sharon Landon and welcome back to Old Asian Lady. Today my guest is Brian Foden. He is a Canadian who has been living in Taiwan for over 25 years. He is a journalist, broadcaster, teacher, writer, and voiceover artist. Brian shares his journey coming to Taiwan in 1999. We talk about the different aspects of his career over the years. He is married to a Taiwanese and they have a beautiful biracial daughter. We chat about some of the cross-cultural challenges that he's experienced here in Taiwan, his thoughts about aging and health. He also shares his reasons and concerns of relocating his family back to life in Canada at this time in his life. Brian, thanks so much for coming by and chatting with me today.
Oh, well, thanks for having me, as they say in TV land. On the news, right? They always say that.
Oh, yeah,
thanks for being our
right.
guest. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, that's right, because, you do broadcast news and things like that, and you're also a journalist. But before we get to that part, we're talking about, I wanted to kind of find out a little bit about where you were. Because you're from Canada.
That's right, yeah.
And you made your way here to Taiwan, and
Correct.
How did that come about?
Sure, okay. Well, I was born and raised in the Vancouver area, and then I went into journalism, and so it's very competitive in the Vancouver. It's one of the big markets. So my first journalism job was in the next province over, Alberta, and then I kept going east. So usually people go west. I went east. It gets colder, right?
You went still east.
And I went even further
now.
east. Yeah, it's a pattern. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was in a province called Saskatchewan, and that's I spent a good bulk of my journalism career at a newspaper, a daily newspaper in a place called Regina, Saskatchewan. Some people would call it Regina, but in Canada it's called Regina. Regina is the capital province of Saskatchewan. And then I was there. And then, speaking of why I came here, I got laid off. A bunch of us, it was a buyout. We got laid off. A bunch of us, about 89 people got laid off. One of the guys went to Korea, and that sort of first started me thinking about going overseas and teaching, because he was teaching. And I thought about it more. Then I moved back to British Columbia, and I was working there too. And then, I just kept seeing these advertisements in the Vancouver newspapers. Come teach English in Taiwan. And they would list the salary too. I'm like, oh, well, that's not bad, So the idea came like, well, okay, spend a couple of years maybe teaching English, seeing the world, travel maybe a bit, make money, and have a extended vacation in a sense.
So, sometimes I wonder, because I've always heard that, we have guides and angels and things like that. When you start seeing messages everywhere, for example, like you're seeing all these messages about teaching in Taiwan, or somebody next to you is telling you, or you'll that they're mentioning that they're going to teaching and stuff like that. It's kind of a little bit messages to guide you a little bit.
Yeah, maybe too, and maybe along that line, I did take, before I came to Taiwan, I was thinking about Taiwan, but I took a English as a second language teaching. It was a night school program, and it was started by these two guys, one of which who had taught in Taichung, and so I could find out about Taiwan through him as well. So a little bit like that as well.
Yeah, sometimes we just have to listen, for messages.
Or just, it's right in your face.
Yeah, sometimes, for example, I have to literally get hit on the head before I get the message.
That's that for me too.
So you came to Taiwan, but did you already have a job lined up?
No, actually, I heard from just online communities that it's a good idea to come and check out the situation, because you could sign a deal that is not that favorable. So I came and I was looking around, and then I found things. Yeah. Yeah.
So that was in 1999, right?
99 is when I came. Yeah, yeah.
So that means you've been in Taiwan now for
26 years. Next month.
time passes,
March.
right? I mean, it
Yeah.
gets to the point.
Yeah, time passes. Yeah.
And you never think about it when you're younger because you always hear people say,
Yeah.
"Oh, time passes so quickly," but at that time we never think it is. But actually, it's
Yeah,
true.
and my time frame for coming to Taiwan was not 26 years. It was maybe a couple years at most, at that time. That was my thinking
That was your
as well.
plan, yeah.
And just things kept happening, and
Yeah, I find out that happens a lot to a lot of expats that do come to
I've
live.
met a few people. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, including me too. My
Yeah.
stint was supposed to be 6 months, and now
Okay.
it's also 10 years.
Oh yeah, and counting.
Yes. So, but there's some thinking and considerations that is coming into my head now about that. But so you got a job teaching, and how
Yeah.
was that?
Well, yeah, it was interesting. I remember my first ARC was with a very charismatic, flamboyant Irish guy, and he was living here. And it was interesting that, yeah, so my first ARC was with a foreigner, Irish guy, who had started his own school, actually.
School, okay.
Yeah. So I was, that's how I had my ARC with him. Yeah.
Yeah, so you had to have the ARC to be able to legally work
That's
here
correct.
in Taiwan.
Right.
So are foreigners then allowed to start schools and things like that?
I've met
here?
a few, yeah. I've met, just talking to a guy last night who is now living on Vancouver Island, and he was telling me last night he's visiting from Vancouver Island, and he had a school. I didn't know he had a school when he was here.
Wow.
Yeah, I've met several foreigners, as they call us, Waigoran, who have had schools or have schools. Yeah, I've never had it. I've never really. A good friend of mine. Do you know Carlene? I don't know you. Anyway, Canadian woman, very nice person. Hi, Carlene. Break the fourth wall there.
She's still in Taiwan?
She is not. No,
Okay.
she moved back, I don't know, 5 years ago or so, to Ontario, and she had a school here too. Did very well, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, I find that I think it's a safe bet to start an English school. It's just a matter of how it's run and how it lasts. But in terms of teaching English here in Taiwan, what differences did you find, or do you have any thoughts about the English education system here?
Well, I wasn't a teacher in Canada, so
Right, that's
this is my
true.
first teaching experience. Well, what I found was there's big demand for it, and there's a lot of people teaching English that don't have teaching backgrounds. But I have met several who have teaching backgrounds. So I would guess it's a mixed bag, and then you have the different standards of the schools. So I think it's all over the place from what I can see. I mean, I'm sure you have really good schools. And of course, you have the TAS, Taipei American School, and the European School, which I'm sure are have high standards. Then you have the bushy bonds that are, I mean, I imagine if they weren't teaching kids, they'd be selling shoes or something. Some of them.
That bad?
Then I don't think I'm telling any
secrets?
foreigners that have taught in Taiwan know that there's good schools and there's not so good schools. Yeah. But my experience is I didn't really teach kids. I've basically always taught adults. Yeah, so I can't speak to that. Just so much of what I heard. Yeah.
Oh, so the school that you were working with, the Irish guy.
Yeah.
He mostly was an adult education.
Yeah, well, calling it a school it was more of a business than a school. I mean, what he did is he got contracts from companies. I remember one was DHL. I would go to DHL and teach their staff English, a variety of things, and then I think one of his contracts was with an advertising agency, if I recall, and so I got into that. And then he kind of sold his school to another guy, and the other guy ended up sort of not doing it anymore as well. So I mean, basically they hired me directly. And by that time I had, my ARC, I was all settled. Kind of thing.
Yeah, I have a story about this, going to a company to teach their English. One of my friends is an Australian, and he was teaching business English, which was the category, but I mean, he's never had any kind of business experience at all, but he was going to a company to teach that, and one of the days he was not able to make it. So he asked me if I could substitute for him. And I said, yeah, sure. I've been in business. Not a problem. He just provides me the materials and stuff. But I told him, you should double check with the company because I have an Asian face. So it might affect them, wanting me to teach at their company just for a day even. And so he's like, what? And I said, yeah, just ask. So sure enough, he went back and he asked, and sure enough, yep, they didn't want to have.
There is that.
Yeah.
Yeah, which being from the West, we would look at that as, I mean, if you want to put a stark name to it, it'd be discrimination.
Yes.
But it's not seen that way here.
Yeah.
Yeah. They couldn't get away with that in the West.
In the West, yeah. That's the thing, So for teaching then, how long did you stay? Because you ended up going to a radio station.
Yeah, well, my background is journalism, as I said, mostly newspaper, almost all of it. But I did a stint, you could call it, just a few months or so at the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, which is sort of like the BBC for Canada. So I got exposed for a few months. It was just a temporary contract, and they were going through budget cuts at that time. So I didn't get hired on for more. Maybe they didn't like me. I don't know.
Or maybe your path was meant to go a different way.
There you go. It's another one staring you in the face.
Yep.
So so I had background in radio and newspaper journalism. So one of the first things I did when I got here is I did go to ICRT, and at that time they were still in Yangmingshan. Again, this is 1999, and I remember talking to the news director, and he says, "Well, we don't have any openings right now." And he gave me an idea of what the pay was, et cetera. And so he said, keep in touch. And then, I don't know, so May of 2000, right? I was looking at the Taipei Times, and there was a bunch of huge ads, for ICRT, just huge, like announcers and everything like that. Oh, okay, there's opportunities. What had happened, so I applied, I got the job, right? So what had happened is they had, shortly after, I guess, I had met with the news director in Yangmingshan, I guess they went through a lot of cuts after that, I should say. And I think they cut too many positions. They had to hire people back and new people. So I've been...
Oh, no, it sounds like the Trump fiasco.
Yeah, I never made that connection.
They fire people and then they hire them back.
Yeah, not as bad maybe, but in a sense, I suppose, in that distant sense. So I was a benefactor of that. No, I'm not the benefactor. I'm the benefitee. I benefited from that.
Yeah. Can you explain a little bit about what ICRT is and what it did?
Yeah, it stands for International Community Radio Taipei. And it is the only English radio station in Taiwan. And it used to be the U.S. Armed Forces radio. And then it became sort of, I guess you could call it sort of privatized, but it was became like a foundation that ran it, and a not-for-profit foundation, nonprofit foundation. And I think it's still basically set up that way.
Is it still the only English radio station, really?
Yeah. I mean, you might get elements of English on some other stations, but it's still the only English station.
They got a monopoly on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised since English is so important here in Taiwan.
Yeah, I guess something with the regulations, or nobody else wants to take the risk. And now wouldn't be a good time because radio's on the decline. It has been for a long time. Yeah. As is other traditional media. Yeah.
So how was it working at ICRT, and what exactly was it that you did there?
Oh, yeah. Well, it was good. It was interesting. So what I did was I was the morning news show producer. At that time, they had a 1-hour news program. Again, this is 2000, and I was there from 2000 to about mid 2004, roughly. And yeah, so my job was to one of my big jobs was to time everything out and make sure everybody hit their time marks. Because you can't have a 1-hour show going 1 hour and 5 minutes,
Right.
that kind of thing. I don't know how it is here, but
We go with the flow.
right. So yeah, that taught me to be very organized, and I'd always be watching the clock, And I would give, like say, Bill Thiessen, the late Bill Thiessen, who's well known in Taiwan. Did you know Bill?
No,
Oh.
I came here later.
Okay, well, yeah, well, Bill
2015.
died in 2014, I believe it
Okay,
was.
I got here in 2015.
Yeah, okay, yeah, and he was the morning news. He was the main news anchor for ICRT, and many years. And he also had a well-known jazz show. He did a jazz show on ICRT as well. So he's very well known. So I worked with him. And so my job was to make sure guys like Bill, and then there was a sports guy. He was also the news director, but he was the main sports reader too, Todd Van Wyk, and other people. So yeah, to make sure that so like okay, so I timed everything out, right? And like we had like a circle, I think, of this, and you got the commercials, you got these different segments with CDs at that time you had to press, at certain my job was partly to push the button at the right time.
Not VHS, there was CDs, right?
CDs at that time, yeah.
Not that old.
Not quite the VHS, no. So that was a big part of my job, and so and also downloading. So they get a lot of their news from Associated Press, AP, and including what we call sound, which would be news reports filed by an AP reporter, say in London, Afghanistan, wherever it was. And so I would choose. One part of my job was to choose the sound, the news reports that I thought would go good in the in the rundown there of the news stories that Bill would read, right? Or Bill would have his copy. He would have like the printed stories that he would choose on his own, and I would give him the sound that I thought that he would want to use too. And I would consult with him sometimes. Do you think you want this or whatever? But usually I would just pick it, and he would either use it or not. And I also read. I was an anchor too. During the morning news hour, I read a business section. So I had to compile the business stories, usually about 3 to 5 minutes of that stuff. Part of it was, again, Associated Press. At that time we had Reuters, Newswire. Just timing it all out, choosing some of the sound, if there was sound available on AP. They call it the sound bank at that time. And then I also read one other newscast later, like 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. newscast. And then we were out of there, because one of the negative parts was that it was a 7 a.m. start. And you got to do a lot of work before you can go on air at 7 a.m. You got to get all this news ready, right, and timed out, and it's all time consuming. So I would usually have to get there around 5 or 5:30. I would have to be there at 5 or 5:30. I think it was 5:30. So I had to wake up 4 or 4:30. And I lived in Xindian at that time. I'd go all the way from Xindian up to, at that time, they had moved, by the time I had started at ICRT, they moved from Yangmingshan to like Songjian Road near Minchuan, Xintiangong, if you know what that is.
Okay, Xintiangong.
Yeah, so I was always tired. I was always tired.
Xintiangong is a lot better than Yangmingshan over there.
Yeah, I never had to go up. Other than that time, I just talked to the news director to see if there was a job. I never worked up in Yangmingshan. Yeah.
Right, I always wondered about the newscasters that have the early morning shows and things, and I just thought to myself, it has to be super early in the morning.
Yeah, it was hard. Yeah, it took a toll on me. I was tired, and I never wanted to go to bed early enough. So I was constantly tired during those 4.5 years, roughly.
Were you working only there then at that time, and you were teaching also, or?
I was doing some part-time teaching. Yeah.
So couldn't get up for the 4 o'clock in the morning. Too many.
That's eventually. Eventually that's why I quit. Because I remember going into the boss's office, and I said, I've been doing this for a long time. Can I get a change in shift? And he said, no. Well, can I get more money? No. So I said, you're not going to change my shift. You're not going to give me more money. So I'm going to quit.
Right.
And it was at that time that I just didn't want to get up that early anymore, and lack of sleep. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's bad for your health.
Well, some people get into the routine of working midnight
sure.
type of things.
Yeah.
It
Well,
just depends what the rest of your life is like.
If I was getting $1 million a year, like they do in the U.S., some of those guys, if I were Joe Rogan or something like that and had my own podcast and I needed to get up early, oh yeah, that's but not for what they were paying me. Not for the piddly amount, yeah. Sorry, ICRT. But, yeah.
So did you, like when you were reading a newscast and stuff, did you have to do a broadcast voice, or were you using your own regular voice when you were talking?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, I mean, I do put on a radio voice. Yeah,
radio voice.
Not smarmy like that. But yeah, it's more from the diaphragm, I think. And it sort of came natural. And I didn't get much training either at the CBC or at ICRT. Maybe a couple of people mentioned a few things like one mistake. If you're an aspiring broadcaster out there, one mistake is to go up too much. Yeah, at the end of your line, you don't want to go up. You want to go down usually.
Okay,
yeah, so
that's funny.
One of the DJs told me that, Richie Walker. Hey, Richie.
Wow.
He was about the only tip I got, other than Americans who work in there. Oh, you say it this way. You don't say it that way, like niche instead of niche. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, but I wonder
Americans.
if it's different in different industries, because I feel like within my work, or if you're doing speeches or something like that, oftentimes there's talking about having the voice go up at the end of certain sentences rather than down.
It depends, but with news, it's you don't want it to be like going up is more of a lighter one, right? Like if you're doing
if you're doing like a death toll news or something like that, they definitely don't want to go up.
Is there any other kind? No.
Oh, did you have to report on all the different earthquakes and stuff that was happening?
95% negativity, right? I mean, you sometimes get the human interest story, but there's that old saying: if it bleeds, it leads. It's just the nature of the beast. It's just that's what news is. Yeah, it's nice to get good stories. It's uplifting. It can be inspiring, but the majority of what goes on in the world is not, and what's reported on, is not that positive.
Yeah, I mean, when you're saying it that way, and I think back, that's pretty much true. I think during the time that I was working abroad for 10 years, and I remember specifically limiting myself or telling me that I don't want to watch any kind of news, because I mean, now that you brought it up, that's exactly right. You just hear a lot of bad things. You're right.
Well, yeah, but so because of that, you want to sound more serious and authentic, I think, in a sense. And you don't want to sound tentative and like you don't know what's going on or happy too much, right?
Yeah.
So
I did a newscaster kind of project where we were talking about Taiwan's environmental protection and environmental issues and how they handle it and stuff. So it was kind of a little bit serious, but not disastrous stuff.
Yeah.
But what did you? I know what aspects of it that you didn't like, but what did you enjoy about it? Because you're actually back again doing
journalism.
Journalism or
what
broadcasting.
I studied that, and that was my career actually. Yeah, in Canada. But yeah, that part I really liked about it, and it's interesting to be part of. Well, you're not part of the news, but you're there when you're announcing it to other people, and it's interesting and exciting. You kind of, if you get addicted to that so much, but you just. You in a sense you thrive on the immediacy and the impact of it.
So, well, after you left ICRT, you were working part-time, you said, in English, but did you find another job full-time right away?
Well, yeah. So eventually I got my APRC, so that allows me to do any kind of work, right?
But that took how many years?
Well, that usually takes at that time it took about 7 years, yeah. But I was with ICRT for about 4.5, right? And I'd already been here a year by the time I started there, right? Like I was working for that Irish guy, the ARC. Yeah. So, but yeah,
What's the requirements actually for ARC?
ARC. Well, you have to, I mean, I think it's changed over the years, but I believe at the time that I was getting ARCs, and I got them from different companies, and one was a school too, another different school, Conversation. That was one of them that I got my ARC. So after ICRT, I would have gotten an ARC from another type of school, but of course, business English, right? I think that's where I got my ARC from.
But that's a permanent one, though. I mean,
well, later was the APRC.
So it's APRC.
Yeah.
ARC just allows you to be able to work
Right.
in Taiwan legally. And then the APRC.
The P stands for permanent.
Permanent.
So it's like a PR, permanent residency. Yeah.
Okay, and that you had to live here
yeah, at the time, I think it was 7 years when I applied for it. But now I think they've reduced it to 5 years. And you have to make an income level, a certain level. But it's become easier to get the APRCs, as I understand.
So I know too that aside from you teaching English, you write books.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm like finding you on Momo
I'm up
and
there.
Shopee
That's right.
and all these books that you wrote.
Yeah.
So how did you get into that? And
oh, well, that was with some companies, publishers that I've worked for, mostly freelance. Yeah. So yeah, I remember I would go to book exhibitions sometimes, TIBE, Taipei International Book Exhibition, which is every February. I went there earlier this year just to see what's going on. And yeah, you make contacts, and you just establish relationships and send them your resume, and if they have a project. So yeah, I mean, I have some publishers that give me work and part-time articles and things like that. And I've done books in the past, yeah.
so you said you were in newspaper before rather than broadcasting.
Yeah.
And so writing books and things like that, is it similar or not really?
Well, depends on what the book is, right? But if it's the books that I wrote mostly were, just like learning English books, right? So it's not exactly like journalism. No, it's, but some of it would have articles and readings in it that would be similar to journalism. Maybe the language wouldn't be as high level in the sense of advanced, right? But some of the dialogues, and I remember one of the books, it was like a couple of books were business related, like marketing, and I don't really have a business background, but I did a lot of. But as a reporter, I always did research, right? So I know how to do research, and I try to be as accurate as possible and learn as much as I can about it. And being a writer, a journalist, I can put it out in a comprehensive and easy to understand way. And sometimes there'd be dialogues that I'd write, and you might have an article, and let's say it's a business, it's about meetings, and you'd highlight key words, and then you might have a dialogue using the key words and that kind of stuff.
Okay, so it was
not rocket science, but
so it was teaching. That was for people to learn business English type of thing.
Exactly.
Okay, so when your name is on the books and things like that, do you get residuals for it, for the things that you work on?
No, not me. Unfortunately, I would like to do that though. Usually, the way publishers here would try and do it is if they give you the idea. I mean, this has been my experience anyway. If they give you the idea, they want to just give you a lump sum. So here it is. Here's the idea. You write it. We'll give you this much money.
Right.
And you can say yes or no or negotiate it, whatever you want. So I haven't really gotten royalties, right?
Yeah,
I might, if I do it again, which I'm thinking about, I might want to try a royalty thing, but
it's all negotiated then, is what you're
yeah,
saying.
right. If they want your idea, I mean, I think for royalties, it's more like you come up with the idea and you
Right.
pitch it to them. You know, this is my understanding, but I might be wrong. I'm sure there's people in Taiwan that says, he didn't know what he was doing, which could be true to a degree. But or he didn't try hard enough maybe to get the royalties. But now my understanding is, well, you know, the book industry has gone down a lot, so maybe the royalty thing wouldn't be such a great idea anymore or not. I don't know. Maybe I should try Amazon. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think I've read a book for a long time, because I used to, growing up, used always going to the library and getting all these books and blah 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 blah. But
Now there's too much competition,
too much other stuff going
internet,
on.
and looking at your phone all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I try not to do that too much.
Yeah.
But so this whole time that you were here, then you ended up getting married to Vivian. Was that something that was a few years in the works, or did that happen?
Yeah, we dated. We met in 2003, and we dated for about 5 years, and then we got married in 2008. So 16, coming up 17 years.
And so she's
My gray hair.
she's Taiwanese. Had she gone abroad and studied or anything like that?
No, she hadn't. No, she'd taken trips, but she hadn't studied abroad. No, no.
And so then a Canadian marrying a Taiwanese, was that always really smooth? Or dating wise, were there any cultural differences that you had to deal with? There's a lot of Asians in Canada, but having a relationship or being married to one is a different thing.
Well, it's a different culture. Yeah, it's a cross-cultural marriage. We have a cross-cultural daughter as well. She's 11 now, almost 12. She'll be 12 next month. Yeah. So yeah, to answer your question, yeah, I mean, different cultures can be good, can be great, interesting. You know, with a variety in the differences, but it can also be challenging, right? I think as anybody who's had a cross-cultural relationship could attest to. You have different expectations sometimes, different ways of looking at it. The language can be even problematic.
Is she fluent in English?
Yeah, she is, yeah. She's not like a super high advanced, you know, speaker. She's not native-like, but much better than my Chinese. So we communicate in English. And, you know, yeah, it's like any relationship. I think it can add, you know, it depends on the personalities too, right? You know, how do people deal with differences and change, and you have different attitudes toward that. So I think the more open and accepting you can be of the differences and respectful of those, the better things go. Yeah.
So when you first started dating her, were her parents really accepting of you because you're a Caucasian guy?
I don't know too much because they never spoke any English. But I think, you know, I've heard stories, right? Like, and I know there is an element of some, maybe the older parents perhaps don't like their daughters or sons dating a foreigner, right? I never got any of that. But I was just sort of on the outside all the time, right? But I think I got off fairly easy because she didn't give me a hard time. The mother-in-law didn't give me a hard time, so that was good. But I never really communicated with her much. No.
Right. Oh, that's interesting, because how do you usually families, parents, when you get married, are kind of there in your lives, especially Asian families and stuff.
Yeah, I was lucky that way.
For you. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's because
Maybe it's
it
the
was an
language.
impossibility to a degree, unless you want to go through the interpretation, right?
Right.
I guess you got to be really motivated to want to interfere with somebody's life if you have to go through a translation like that. You know, tell them this, tell them that. No, I never really got that.
Well, that's pretty good then. So you said you have one daughter, and she's biracial.
Yeah.
She's also bilingual.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, yeah.
What like aside from Mandarin and English, does she speak Taiwanese or other?
I don't think so. She may understand some words. She's bilingual, but it's definitely her Chinese is better than her English, and that's because her mom, looked after her, a lot. She was a stay-at-home mom and always would communicate with her in Mandarin, and she would talk to me in English all the time too. So, but and she goes to a public Chinese speaking, Mandarin speaking school. So I would have to say that her Mandarin is better than her English. She's native Mandarin. At this point, you kind of have to classify her as a advanced EFL student. For the most part, no problem. But it's not as good as her Chinese. Yeah. But she's bilingual. Yeah.
Right. EFL, is that different than
Oh yeah,
ESL?
well, with that
English?
teaching
all these
stuff,
acronyms. What is
EFL stands for English as a foreign language.
Oh, not as a first language. Oh, foreign language.
Well, yeah, ESL is English as a second language.
Right.
So, how does that work? If a Taiwanese goes to Canada, I think they study English as a second language because the language of Canada they would speak is English.
English. Okay, then that makes sense that because English is not the official language here in Taiwan,
right,
that it would be considered still a foreign language.
Yeah. So I mean, we call it ESL all the time, but I think technically it's EFL what we're doing here. Yeah, because there's not an environment of English here, right? I mean, there is, but not to the degree it is in Canada.
Right.
Or America. Yeah.
For your daughter, do you... actually, because she's going to a local school, it's not like she's running around and hanging around a lot with foreign kids, or is she?
No. I wish that were the case. Then her English might be better. And I mean, I have some friends who have kids, and they're foreigners, but not a lot, really, for her to hang out with, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was just wondering about that because in terms of her identity, because obviously she's half-half, and if she had any kind of issues dealing with that part of her, the two parts of her.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No, she's, for the most part, Taiwanese, right? I'm really right now. And we send her to a bushiban for English as well. At least a few times a week now. So there's that element to it. But everything else is, Taiwanese society, right? And Taiwanese, the Mandarin and whatnot. So really it's just with me and this bushiban where she has the English connection.
I mean, one of the reasons why I'm asking that is that I just found out like a couple of days ago that you're actually planning on moving back to Canada.
Yeah, I told a few people, but not too many, but not trying to keep it a secret. It's just
It's just how many years? 26 years. There's a lot of things happening because you guys also have a house here,
an apartment. Yep.
Yeah, and a lot of things to deal with. But what was the specific thing that made you decide then to move back? Because you have a whole life here with a house, apartment.
Sure. Well, okay. I would say there's three factors, right? I thought about this a lot, right? Not for the show so much, but just in general, right? How do I explain it to people, and how do I feel about it? Two of the big ones are not me so much. One is Heather, my daughter, because I think it would be good for her to experience a different culture while she's still young, a different education system that I hope would stimulate her as well. And, it's just part of the Canadian heritage, right? Like, I'm still a proud Canadian, even though I'm a Canadian citizen. I'm not a resident. I don't live in Canada, and not now, not yet.
Yeah.
So that's a big factor. And the other factor is my mother, who is elderly and frail. She's in a nursing home. She's now 92. and not getting any younger. And she's really disabled in a sense that she's hunched over, and I can't even get her on the phone anymore because it's too hard for her to answer the phone. So I haven't talked to her for a couple of months.
Do you have siblings there that are
I have one brother who's
her?
older than me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've got a couple of nieces because he has a couple of daughters. I got tons of friends that I still, keep in touch with and whatnot.
Right. I was just wondering about your mom.
Several anyway.
Care for your mom, but yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, she's in a nursing home.
Right.
Yeah. So she's looked after that way, but I can't even talk to her anymore. And I know she always loves it when I go visit. And when I visit her at the nursing home, she always says she'll miss me when I go back. And
she recognizes you.
Oh yeah, she hasn't really. It's not like she's got Alzheimer or dementia. Although there are some signs. That's another worrying thing. She's forgetting things. She's forgetting how to play games that she grew up playing, I guess, or for decades. No, it definitely recognizes me, but it's just her physicality and her health is declining. But yeah, and who knows how long, right? So yeah, I think that's one of the big reasons. And the third one is me. I mean, I am a Canadian, and I do have a connection. I mean, in the sense of mentally and whatnot. And I have friends there, and I'd like now. So. Part of that is that I would like to spend some time, not just on a holiday anymore. I'd like to be there. Now, we also have talked with my wife. I've talked, and it very well could be that we will come back to Taiwan. And I'm not just saying this for the Taiwan viewers, but I keep breaking the wall.
Broadcasting person coming out.
I know, and acting too, right, as you are, right? But I'm not acting now, but. It's very likely actually that we will come back to Taiwan, and in about 6 or 7 years after Heather graduates, it's kind of up in the air. I mean, my wife would like to come back for sure. I like Taiwan. Oh, you're leaving Taiwan. You don't like Taiwan. That's not it, right? I do. I mean, Taiwan has been very good to me, and I have a lot of fond memories of Taiwan. I have a lot of friends in Taiwan, both Taiwanese and foreigner, as they call us. So I really, do like Taiwan, and it may be.
Do you consider it home compared to Canada? Because I often wonder.
I mean, it's not my birth home. Taiwan's not my birthplace, but I've been here 26 years. So definitely, but I do, have a fondness for Canada and. Whatnot. So that's part of it, and it may be in the future if it's possible to go back and forth. Some people do that, right?
Yeah.
Like several months there, kind of thing, and a few months traveling around. But financially, I don't know if I can do that. Mm-hmm. It depends. So yeah, that's all the great unknown of the future.
Yeah. So then. If you're thinking about possibly coming back, then your apartment, you're actually not going to sell it. You'd rent it out or something.
No, we're selling it because we need the money
Oh, okay.
to live in Vancouver, the Vancouver area. It's not cheap. No, I need that money to make it work.
Right.
Yeah, and it just wouldn't work out. I mean, we did think about renting it out and keeping it and renting it to other people and having that income, but. With the expense of living in Vancouver, it's just too much to handle it without selling.
Right. Yeah. The standard of living is definitely different here. Between here and the States or in Canada.
It is. Yeah. But the real estate, it's comparable. Yeah.
Yeah, because
it's crazy here. Yeah.
I know it's way crazy here because I always thought. I can't believe for the amount of money that you have to pay out for the size of the apartment that you would get.
Yeah.
And you guys bought outside in the outskirts.
Well, that's right, Tuchun.
Which is more reasonably priced.
Yeah. Oh, I would never have bought in Taipei. I'm too frugal.
Crazy.
I just couldn't afford it, right? I mean, I suppose I could extend myself more, but I'm a bit risk averse to extending my debt too much. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that, now that you made the decision to go back, that concern you?
Concern me about
Or
the
is
move,
there
you mean?
any, aside from finance, I guess,
Yeah, well, that's always
of moving back?
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, the finance, I mean, I had planned on taking more work back with me and doing it remotely, but I'm not going to be as successful as I thought I might be in that regard. So I'll probably have to get a job in Vancouver for a while. Anyway, but I think there's possibilities. But yeah, apart from the financial thing, yeah, well, you know, the society is a bit different. There is a level of homelessness that's greater there, and you see drug use on the streets in certain areas. So I want to avoid those areas, particularly for my wife and daughter's experience of it, which limits you a little bit from where you can live. So I have to be very careful. I have to be rather careful of where I relocate to. My daughter's going to be a challenge for Heather because she's not a native speaker of English. It's going to be, but you know, she's young and they have programs there for ESL students. So that's kind of what she'll be to a degree, an ESL student there. And I expect her to pick it up, I hope. Yeah.
Why is it that, I mean, I know you said that she speaks English here, and you communicate with her in English.
Yes.
But you never had thought possibly that you guys would go back to Canada before to have her English or improve her English to the fluency level that...
Well, I mean, we do
be...
put her in a bushy bun and
right,
whatnot, right? So I think it's just a natural thing. And maybe I could have made it more of an effort. Bad dad. No. You know, it's just, and I guess I thought in my head too, was that, well, if we go back and she's still young, at some point she'll pick it up.
Yeah, it'll be easier
so
for
I
her
guess
to pick it up.
that's partly why I was maybe not as proactive in that sense of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because too, I was thinking that now she was born here and grew up here.
Yeah.
And Vivian was born here and grew up here.
Correct.
So have they, you know, expressed any concerns, or do you have any concerns in terms of them being able to adapt easily there? Vancouver has a large Mandarin-speaking population as
They
well.
got immigrants from everywhere.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah. It's a real. What do they call it? In the U.S.
Melting
they call it
pot.
well, that's the U.S. And that's the thing of like, oh, they all melt together and become Americans. Yeah, we have a mosaic. Traditionally,
okay.
that's what they call it, a mosaic, where
Right.
we appreciate the differences.
Yeah.
We don't try to assimilate them all, kind of a thing. You have different attitudes, of course. Some people are more like they are more accepting, and others aren't. But yeah, so you will definitely. Yeah, I mean, I have good friends who are ethnic Japanese, ethnic Chinese. Yeah, definitely. I mean, we got a huge Indian population, Korean. It's just massive. I mean, yeah. And now, as I was mentioning earlier, Spanish speakers. When I was back last year on a holiday, you know, going on the subway and taking the bus, I'd never heard it before. But a lot of people were speaking Spanish. Wow, that's a change that I've seen actually. And not being there, for a long time, not living there, I should say, I didn't notice that it was happening, right? Yeah, which is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So Heather's going to go into junior school, high school, or high school?
Yeah, she'll be like middle school.
Middle school.
Grade
okay.
7.
Yeah. So kids are pretty adaptable and whatnot.
Yeah, I don't want to leave it too long because the older you get, the harder it is to change and to learn stuff.
So you're the one that just brought this up about age.
Age.
Yeah. So I mean, is that something?
It's a 4-letter word.
Obviously,
No, it's not 4 letters.
in your face because your mom is a lot older. But in terms of yourself and how you think about that, did you ever think that you'd be in the position that you're at this age in your life where you are?
Did I ever think that would happen? Like when I was in my 40s or something like that, you mean, or 30s?
When we're younger.
Which was just yesterday, actually. No. You know, it's interesting. I have to say one of my weaknesses, like this is a job interview, right? He said, Brian, what's one of your weaknesses? I have to say, like, planning for the future. Like, I mean, you know, financially, you know, I've got some savings, you know, it's because of my frugality, I guess, and I get that from my parents. Like, I don't really, other than traveling, right, and whatnot, but yeah, like where are you going to be in 5 years? I could never really think of that question, right?
Yeah.
Like before, but now I'm starting to think that way. You know, later in life, I'm getting better at it now, and I'm seeing there's a value to this. Where are you going to be in 5 years? You know, so I'm thinking in 6 years, where are we going to be? Are we going to be in Vancouver still? Heather's graduated. Vivian wants to come back. I wouldn't mind coming back either. Maybe spending, you know. So now I'm at this late stage in the game. I'm getting better at thinking for the future. Otherwise, you know, like, well, as long as I got a job and I'm saving money and I'm doing stuff, and it's okay, right? But yeah, there's a real value to having those 5-year plans, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel that? Do you feel old, or I don't know? Sometimes people think I don't feel old. I know that I'm older, and
Yeah.
I don't necessarily feel that I'm old. So I remember one time that you went through a period where you lost a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And
I gained some of it back, as you can see.
was that because of concern about being older and that you needed
It was
to
a
get
health
help?
thing. It was health, because I was diagnosed with high blood pressure and diabetes. Yeah.
Okay.
And I had some good momentum to lose weight and cut down on the sugar. I don't know, I've lost a bit of that, so I want to get back to that, yeah. No, it wasn't because I felt I was getting older, it was because of the health thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, no doubt about it, I'm getting older, like everybody. So do I feel old? Well, you look at the number, I'm not going to tell you.
See, men don't like to tell either, because we were talking about women definitely don't like to tell, but men.
Yeah,
also.
until I was
a certain age.
until I was in my mid-40s or so.
Yeah.
I didn't mind. Oh yeah, I'm 42, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, especially when I'm around younger people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that happened the other day. Well, not the other day, a little while ago. Yeah, so younger people were asking me how old I was. But anyway, well, no, you know, I mean, mentally, I guess I still feel younger, I suppose. Yeah, definitely. Physically, you know, I can still play ball hockey with the young guys. Not very good at it, but I've been doing that lately. Yeah, I still have a level of physicality that I'm not, you know, I'm not really slowing down that much. But yeah, I mean, getting gray hair and whatnot, yeah.
So I wonder if it has to do with, I don't know, the things that you do. For example, you also do voiceover.
Yeah.
And that can be a lot of fun in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I wish I did more fun stuff. I do mostly stuff is English teaching related, but yeah, sometimes you get the odd fun thing, you know. Yeah, and that was always been one of my dreams, I guess you could say, or well, yeah, aspirations, I guess, to do voice work. And I've done some of that. I mean, you know, getting back to, you know, being in Taiwan, that I think for a lot of foreigners like that, you get to kind of live out some of your aspirations that, for whatever reason, usually you didn't have enough, you put enough effort into it or make it enough of a priority or have enough talent maybe. It's harder to do in your own country, right? It's more competitive, right?
For voiceover, I noticed that there are more and more projects out there, really. You're saying back in the States or back in Canada, maybe there's more competition, but so many more things are being put to voice, like audiobooks, a lot of that. I mean, you find so many different books that are going audio
Yeah.
that the opportunities might, be there.
I've never done an audiobook actually, but yeah, I know that there's that work out there, and but it's also technical too. You gotta have the right well, you gotta record it in a way that it's professional enough, right? So I'm not the greatest yet in terms of the sound engineering, right? I've got to improve on that.
So did you always work out of your own home, or you went to a studio
I
and
would go to a studio. Yeah.
Okay.
Lately, in the last couple of years, I've been trying to do more remote stuff because that's the way the industry is going,
Right.
actually. And I joined a website that it is. It's voices.com. Some people will have heard of that. Currently, I'm taking a short online course with a guy in Vancouver who's a professional voice talent. And
Right.
he's had many years of success, and he knows what he's doing. And he says, well, just get a thicker skin and try harder,
Yeah, it's just like getting into anything, auditions for
Yeah.
projects
Well,
or
it's
acting.
right. It's acting, right? It's voice
Yeah.
acting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I'll probably still try that because it's something you can do remotely. But I have to, improve my technique and my recording technique as well. Yeah. And it's so competitive. And now you got AI. You have to worry about that too, right? So,
Yeah.
how many opportunities are there going to be in the future? Is it going to keep shrinking? So, I mean, I'm not relying on that as an income. Good thing too. But it's a possible hobby, that may lead to side income or something.
So did you guys then already have a date that you're leaving Taiwan to go back to Canada?
Oh, well,
it's
we're hoping in August to go
August.
back because September would be the school
Oh,
year.
right, yeah.
So that's probably the latest we can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you at this point, you don't have a job that's lined up there exactly yet.
No. No, I don't.
Yeah.
No.
So still some remote things, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I have some things here I can hopefully take. From the sale of the apartment, I'll have some money that'll cushion things for a while. So it's thought out that way. Yeah.
So
But
is it already your apartment has already been on the market and it's already sold,
Yeah.
or it's
Yeah.
or somebody's already bought it? I can imagine that it won't
went like
last
that.
very long.
It went like that. I tell you, it went in like a couple of days. I was surprised because I thought the government restrictions might make it hard but I'm basically the first person that made an offer on our home. We negotiated with them and we got what we, sort of had kind of hoped for anyway.
Yeah, that's good.
And so they haven't taken possession of it yet, but.
Right.
August. I guess the deal could still go through, but we're thinking it will go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so you're poised to go back to Canada.
Yeah.
Starting to think about your 6-year plan, possibly. Before I let you go, I wanted to ask if you have a wow to share with us. And my wow is words of wisdom.
Oh.
So through the time that you've been here and, your life here, what you're planning on going back to, do you have any thoughts that you might want to share about lessons learned, challenges overcome?
I would say that it's easy to stay in Taiwan. It's very comfortable in a lot of ways, and it can be more comfortable and cheaper to live here than in your home if you're from wherever, right? Europe, Canada. But I think you still got to think of the future. What do you want to do in the future? Because you don't want to be in a situation, I don't think, where I've been here and now what am I going to do? I want, especially if you want to leave, right? Not everybody will leave, right? But some people stay here, I think, because it's easier for them and cheaper, right? But maybe they're not that happy, and maybe they do want to go back. So how are you going to do it? Maybe that's my word of wisdom there. Word of wisdom. Have a plan, maybe. Yeah. Like I say, though, we're probably going to come back because it is a nice place to live, right?
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, and I have a lot of fondness for Taiwan. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, oftentimes my friends that have lived abroad for 20, 30 years, and they go back to their home country, in my case, it's mostly the U.S.
Yeah.
They have problems readjusting to life back there.
Yeah.
Getting a loan, a car, simple things like getting a car loan because they've been abroad for so many years. They don't have credit established in the U.S.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that that's not as big of an issue. I mean, did you keep
Well,
credit
with the
cards
sale,
and things like that?
well, yeah, I have.
I don't know if Canada works the same as U.S.
Yeah, probably to a degree. Yeah, yeah. But with the sale of the apartment, I have enough money to sort of do what I need to do in the first part anyway. I don't really need to get the loan so much.
Right. You haven't filed Canadian taxes for 26 years.
Yeah, the government is gonna be surprised when I do, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, I'll have to renew all that stuff, and it's gonna make filing taxes a bit more complicated because if I do earn income here, I'll have to declare it in Canada, and they have an agreement. So but Canada charges more tax, right? So I got credit for the tax I pay here, but I'll also have to pay tax there on top of that, to meet the Canadian tax grab.
Do they have something like the U.S. where, if you live in a foreign country, you have up to a certain amount that's tax?
No, I don't think so. It's a different system. But in Canada, the way it works is whether you're a tax resident or not, a resident or a tax resident. And I'm not a resident. I'm not a tax resident of Canada. So you have to be careful, though. They can declare you a tax resident if you're not careful. But I've been here so long, and I've cut basically all my ties. Except I may have an account, but my bank account is, the address is in Taiwan, right? So it's not like I have a residence.
Right,
I haven't had a residence in Canada since I left, right?
That's something that I thought about because I still have a address that I use in the States. And I will always keep that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. So that's Canadian. Yeah.
And so because I don't have what they call residential ties.
Yeah.
And because I don't have those residential ties, I am not legally obligated. I don't have to file taxes. So I haven't paid taxes since I've been here, and I don't have to. I'm not avoiding anything. It's just the way the system works. So the system is different than the United States system. Yeah.
So pretty much, are you excited to go back, or are you, nervous?
Excited and a bit nervous. Yeah. And nervous for my wife too, because she'll have to adjust to it. She's, like I said, the more adaptable you are to changes, the better off you are, and she's going to have to learn to flex her adaptability muscles a bit there, I think.
I think parents do a lot of things because of their kids, because for your daughter, she obviously agreed to go move abroad. It's not like it's forever.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. That's a big thing there, I think, yeah.
Your journey is your journey, and the path that you go is where it leads you, right? So,
yeah.
If everything goes well, we'll see you back again in Taiwan.
Yeah, definitely, yeah, for sure.
So thank you for joining us again on Old Asian Lady, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.